I think that we've got the thumb up, brother, to say that we are live. You got us on the on the Facebook. Anyway, we have officially gotten the thumbs up that we are live, and here we are, another episode of Let's Talk About It Wednesday. Well, you know, we always here just a little bit late, but that's okay because we still get in the house and allow you to have a voice. And that's what we're going to do, something a little bit different today. We want our listening and viewing audience to chime in today and tell us, you know, what it is that you want to talk about. I think that's what we're going to do today. Just again, so you can have a voice, an input and an impact on the outcome, right? Remember, this is a platform for you. So please feel free to come on down to be a part of the show, or, you know, contact CCX Create yourself and make your own show, however it is that you wish to do it. But before we get started in taking suggestions or comments or answering questions from, you know, our listening audience, of course, you know, we got to talk about, you know, those beloved Vikings, you know, that took another hard loss. You know, I love my Vikings, very dedicated, you know, but it really stings me each and every week to know that we are not giving it our best. And what do I say by that, or what do I mean by that is that our quarterback, I will say it again, that he is not NFL ready. You know, most people will talk about growing pains and, you know, things of that nature, and how challenging it is to watch growing pains and so on and so forth. And I know that he has definitely put in the work, you know, to make it to the NFL. But I've seen just different traits in him. I'm seeing him, how he's moving and how he's reading various defenses, and how he's, you know, overthrowing, you know, various, you know, open receivers and things of that nature. And it's just, it's making me question if he is truly NFL ready. I think perhaps, you know, him kind of, you know, being, was it number one when he was selected last year? I think that's a lot of pressure to bear. And again, I mean, I'm sure he will get better, you know, over time. And maybe he will be a starting quarterback at some point. But it's just not right now.
Yeah, well, you know, the Vikings, yet again, you know, they have a good team. They're just not clicking on all cylinders. But, I mean, you know, there's always next year.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, I will say this, though. There's still a tiny bit of hope. You know, there's a tiny bit of hope out there that something could happen.
Well, you know, I'm glad that you said that, because I did the numbers,
Yeah.
you know, if you will, the math, if you will, as far as what that would look like, even if we were to make the playoffs per se. And we would have to win the remainder of all of our games flat out. We would have to win each and every game. I think there's, 8 games, 8 games, 8 games left. You know, within winning those 8 games, you know, we would still have to have those in our division for sure lose not only to us, but they would also have to lose 2 games as they're playing the remainder of their games. You know, so we start to ask for a lot. You know, we start to kind of ask for that miracle instead of being in control of our own destiny. Yeah. And so, like you just said, and again, with all due respect for the Vikings and the coaching staff and all of the players, and Lord knows I've supported you forever, you know, but, you know, we're going to have to look at next year. It just is what it is. But I do know that those them Darren Stillers, you know, continue to pull it off, man. I don't know what's going on over there, but they continue to pull one out every week.
Yeah, has some injuries to Aaron Rodgers. He's still kind of listed as questionable, but we're looking forward to being ready to roll against the Chicago Bears down in Chicago this weekend.
Okay, okay.
We're on the fence about Aaron playing because Chicago hard hitting team, so you got to be ready to take some shots, and we're not sure Aaron's up to that caliber of injury. But
well, just maybe, y'all might be able to help us out with Chicago be taking one of them losses.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see what happens with Aaron if he's starts in that first half, and then if he looks good. If not, we'll have to go ahead and start Mason Rudolph. And but we're coming along. We're continuously fighting. Offense still struggling a little bit to put some points on the board, but the defense seems to be stepping up and maintaining, keeping us in the game, keeping us sticking around. Toward that last quarter, last week, we started lighting up the scoreboard, and we got really happy about that.
Right.
So as a result, as it sits, we're 4th seed AFC, and in first place in the division ourselves, the AFC North. And right now, the way things sit, we're in the playoff. So, 4th seed team, that means that we would start off playing, not Denver. Yeah, it could be Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, Buffalo. That's what it would be.
Buffalo.
Yeah, and as you know, Josh Allen is really doing his thing. Even on his bad days, man.
Right. Absolutely.
But the AFC North is a tough division, so we're looking forward to getting the score-ins and getting our chance to be back in the playoffs. And so we every year we know we're going to be there. We just don't know what it's going to look like.
Absolutely.
This year we got a lot of injuries, so we're staggering into the playoffs with some tape and glue. Ramsey was ejected in the last game. But it was because the guy, from Cincinnati spit in his face. And so even though he was ejected initially, the league suspended him. So suspended the opposite team, Chase. He suspended him for a game or two based on his spitting in his face.
Right. So. Well, our beloved Timberwolves has been playing well. They've been doing extremely well. So hats off to them. Continue to keep up that pace. I think right now they're kind of sitting number 4, in their division.
Okay.
But one of the things I would like to kind of hear a little bit more about. Remember, at the end of the season for the WNBA, they was talking about them changes that needed to kind of happen. So I'm keeping my eye and on that there to see. What type of changes are coming for the WNBA, because pay, has always been, one of their challenges. Those young ladies, they work, just as hard, if not even harder, and they deserve, equal pay.
Yeah, I'd like to see the NBA reach across the board to shoulder some of the funding that would take to get those ladies to a level of pay that they need to be at. And I'm sure once the franchises are up and running at that level, that they'll be able to facilitate those proper salaries. So, they're professionals, so, they should get a professional salary. They're doing the same entertainment, doing the same, court running and things of that nature. They need to be getting paid same as their male counterparts. There's just no getting around that.
Well, they're darn sure don't have that, all that betting, and all that other type of stuff that they got investigation they got going on over in the NBA right now, man. We see some big names, being questioned about, some potential illegal activity.
It's sad that they are pretending as though this is something new. Right? It's been going on for years, man. And whoever dropped the ball and decided, yep, I'm mad, I'm going to leak this out. Let's not pretend like it just happened. This stuff's been going on, as long as I can remember, right? So, it's just terrible that guys are willing to throw their careers away for money that they don't need, because these guys are already rich.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we get started here, before I turn it on over to you and allow you to hit them with that famous backpack and those groundkeeping rules, I want to say to our listening audience, please feel free to chime in, type in what it is that you want to talk about today. Today is going to be about you and what it is that you want to talk about. Again, we want to continue to give you this platform, give you a voice to talk about what's important to you in your community. So please type on in what you want to talk about, and we will definitely be seeing that, and we will be able to answer those questions and or talk about whatever it is that you type in. With that being said, Brother Joe, I'm going to go ahead and turn on over to you, so then therefore you can hit him with that famous backpack and them groundkeeping rules.
Yes. We just simply ask that you remember to respect everyone's questions and comments. Remember, there's no such thing as a bad question as long as you ask it respectfully and respect everyone's responses. Remember, you can text us, call us, or email, and we'll do our best to return or contact you back either on this show or the very next show. With that being said, we start, middle, and end this show with a backpack. And that backpack consists of making sure you got your driver's license and insurance before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel, and as always, make it home to your loved ones. Same thing when walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. Keep your hands where they can be seen. And as always, make it on home to your loved ones.
Absolutely. Well, we don't have any individuals chiming in right now, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of keep it moving about some of the things that we've been kind of having happening in our own backyard, and things that we've been kind of still seeing across the country. One of the things that just recently went viral, was the young mother and her two kids, that were walking home from school, and there was a mob of young kids that had attacked the kids and the mother. And I do know that from some information that I had received that, the school is involved, in trying to make sure that they complete the proper investigation, pertaining to these kids. Obviously, they're some of them are on camera, things of that nature, because they just don't know or understand the impact, the trauma, that they're causing, to themselves, to these other kids, the family, the school itself, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that children are going to be children, right? And we don't want to per se lock them up and throw away the key. But when you see the mentality and the actions of such a large number of young people, there has to be some type of prevention, that's taking place, for these kids and for that school. From my understanding, the information I received is that the mother had talked to the school previously on several different occasions in regards to her kids, being bullied, and there was no action taken.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are middle schoolers, right? So these are, 6th through 8th or 6th through 9th, depending on, in Chicago, it's 6th through 8th, because that's considered middle school. But the thing of it is that still, when you got kids that are in groups, that which would be considered mob action, right? 2 or more moving, together in unison to create a crime was considered mob action based on the statute definition. But when you look at something like this, it's tragic because they accosted this lady and her children in a mob. And the thing that I did like about the response was that the community was outraged.
Absolutely.
Right? The community was outraged. The entire community turned out, and it wasn't one of those deals where it's like, don't put your hands on those kids. They turned out like, wait a minute, this is over the top. We're not going to accept this. We want something done with these kids. We want some type of response, and from the community or leadership. And I thought that was really good because even though there were some folks out there in a crowd, the PD were out there, it looked worse than what it was. But it was the community going, nope, we're not going to let this be the norm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was the first time in a long time that the community came out and stood against youth violence.
And this is what we're talking about, on how the community has to be involved.
Yes.
And whatever it is, at whatever level, at whatever aspect, the community has to be involved in order to make the type of changes, that needs to be made in these various different communities. And so we're hoping that the parents of these kids will also see this as serious as it is, and want to help, the school and the victims, and also the other parents that was very concerned about what's going on, because it could have been their kids. And
I think that's what a lot of parents saw out there was
Right.
that, that could have been them and their kids walking home and being violently accosted. And her saying that they pulled my 6-year-old away and hit my 6-year-old. I mean, these were little kids that they were abusing, and she's a smaller lady herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, this was a full-on attack on her, and so it was just great to see the community finally step out and go, nope, we draw the line here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
again, my biggest thing is I just hope that the necessary services and resources, the community and whomever else come together and provide the resources and the information and the services for everyone involved, because these are young kids, and kids do kid things. Now, there's some question about, is this kid play type stuff, because it was more of a mob mentality type thing. But even with that mob, the optics of it being kind of a mob type deal, these are still kids. And we just really want to make sure that our kids are in an educational institution learning, and the teachers are able to learn versus having to deal with more behavioral, type of stuff.
You got a couple things working there. You got the fact that it was by statute mob action. The unique part of it was that they weren't at parents' houses; they were actually at a school, so they're going to school,
Right.
which is the plus side of things. It's just that the behaviors are unacceptable, and so yeah, like you said, hopefully, even though this is be a felony level assault. Hopefully that these kids will be at least forced to get reevaluated, go through some, use of force or anger management, or, some things other than just jail, right? Because
Right, absolutely.
It's my belief that this is a learned behavior. And so when people learn behavior, when kids learn a behavior, they begin to think that that's the norm. And they finally found out that even though they thought it was the norm, that it had reached a level of unacceptance. And so everything kind of came together the way it should have. There was outrageous behavior on the part of the juveniles. The community responded. The attention was there, so they couldn't hide and get away with it. And it reeked of something must be done here, right? So hopefully that the city will get with the school and the family and work out a way to do some type of restorative justice.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, again, to our viewing audience, please join on in. Let us know what you want to talk about. We're trying to open up the doors, open up the floor, if you will, for you to kind of chime in and tell us what you want to talk about today. With that being said, we had another ICE incident here, in the city of St. Paul, and it was quite interesting to where they say that things kind of start to hit close to home. And what do I mean by that is that I spoke with a friend of mine who works at a school, and he was telling me that one of his coworkers' relatives, got caught up, in that scenario or that situation over there. And so she was very concerned about her family members and kind of not knowing where they went or where they were going, or if she's going to be able to see her relatives again, so on and so forth. And so so when you can kind of almost feel it because you're so close to it, it's quite challenging, to kind of listen and to kind of see some of that stuff that's occurring.
My thought is, we really want ICE to do a good job at doing their job. However, we don't want to create terror, right? We don't want to create terror. So, I mean, when we have incidents where guys are committing crimes and we find out they're committing crimes and they're not properly documented, this is a time to utilize the system to get them, out of America if they're causing America havoc. But when people are forced to walk around in fear, just general fear of the fact that my ethnicity might get me yanked up and snatched up, that becomes a problem because, we want to make sure that we're enforcing proper warrants, right? And not just grabbing someone because they look a certain ethnicity.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's what's been pushed so far. And so everyone's afraid, like, man, unless I'm actually specifically Caucasian, there's a good chance that I could get snatched up in the sweep and taken to wherever before they realize that I'm an American, right? And in some cases, they have realized they were Americans and still didn't release them for days at a time. And so some of the behaviors are just egregious. And like I said, we still need to make sure that even if ICE is going to be in jurisdictions, local jurisdictions, that they're communicating with those local jurisdictions. What I keep hearing is that the local law enforcement wasn't really prepared. They did not know what's happening until they're already on the ground and in motion. And I think out of courtesy, we notified local law enforcement that we're going to be in your backyard doing some things so that we can make citizens aware and at least be prepared ourselves to be able to support positive law enforcement on the part of ICE and negate anything that we think is going to be damaging to our citizens, because we still have a responsibility to our citizens first and then our federal partners.
Right, absolutely.
So we can't let you just come in and accost our citizens. So.
Right. Well, and here's the thing is that they made it abundantly clear that the city of St. Paul and Ramsey County Sheriff had nothing to do, with that raid itself. And they did, like you said, come in and provide various services to the people based off of their charter and what they're legally responsible to complete. So that's one of the things that, we want to get the people to understand is that local law enforcement still has a certain duty.
Right.
They still have a certain obligation, to show up and be able to provide certain services, primarily community first. But at the same time, they cannot allow individuals to harm.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, we have an expectation to protect the people that we serve locally.
Yes.
Definitely from the sheriff and local police department. And when our federal partners come in, they need to recognize and respect that, right? Because, I mean, in this particular case in St. Paul, you even heard Mayor Carter on the news there say that, some people were hurt because they got their toes ran over by the squad cars from the ICE. Some were,
maced,
pepper sprayed and tear gassed and things of that nature. And so, first off, people should know this. We don't use force in law enforcement that we don't document. At least we're not supposed to, right? Tear gas and pepper spray is a level of force and should get documented. And anybody who's injured behind that, you're supposed to try to render aid afterwards. So just so we're clear on that, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, they came in, threw tear gas, and left people, right? Because someone that's got tear gas in their eyes can't see, and they could get hurt. You know what I mean? So it's important that the law enforcement, when they do come in, that they're following the steps that they've been trained properly to do. And in the event that they don't do that, we need to hold them accountable, which makes it important to know that they're not wearing masks. Because when they are wearing masks, we have no idea. I mean, the FBI did that. ICE did, you don't know who did whatever. You know?
Well, there's a lot of situations or circumstances that are not being held accountable for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are out there protesting, willing to kind of place their body on the line, attempting to have their voice heard, et cetera, et cetera. And we, that's a very powerful thing to do. Not everybody's willing to do that, but you have to know that if you really want change, and we've been kind of screaming this for a long time, if you really want change, you have to make sure that you utilize the groups that you have and go down there, to the necessary White House or the your capitals and things of that nature, and find out what it takes to have these write a bill and have the bill passed and things of that nature, and get involved, in your community. So then therefore you can better empower, educate, and enhance not only yourself, but those around you. Because showing up at a such a situation, is not really going to have the type of outcome that you're looking
right.
for.
And ICE's response was, we got an investigation going on, we're enforcing a warrant in the middle of an investigation. So they're going to stand on that, and they don't have to go into great detail because it's an ongoing investigation. So, yeah, citizens need to get together with the proper lawyers, and you need to bring a lawsuit against the United States and Supreme Court to at least injunction the Immigration Act is currently being enforced. If they have a problem with that,
Right.
So I mean that's the thing. You got to understand how your government works, guys. You can't just you're shaking a fist at the wrong location. Right. The problem's at 1600 Pennsylvania, and so that's where you need to head to the federal capital and start having some conversations with the proper representatives to put this ball in play. But for right now, we're enforcing some pretty tough immigration laws. And as a result of that, I mean, these guys because they're at the federal level, they're not being restrained, if you would. As Donald said, the gloves are off, so to speak. And so they're out in mask, and you don't know in most cases who's really accosting you. Some of these guys have some identification on them that does says ICE or Homeland Security. However, in some cases they don't. You don't know who's jumping out on you with guns.
Right.
So I think it bodes for a very confrontational situation. We have had some small skirmishes, but I think that the major one is coming. Right? The major one is coming because when you jump out on people in certain areas, where people are already, like, I don't know what, this is a sketchy area as it is, and somebody come in your car trying to open the door, you might get both barrels. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because if I'm in my car and I'm at a light and somebody starts shaking my car and I see a gun, it's going to be a real tight window whether or not I'm going to let you get that gun in my face. You might get shot through the glass, right? So that's...
Yeah, it's really, really just unfortunate
it is.
On
it's
what
terrible.
we're seeing,
it's tragic.
Throughout the country with this here. But like you said, there's unfortunately there's more to come. And I don't say that to want to bring trauma or terror or scare anybody. What I'm trying to do is empower you and enhance you, and educate you, so then therefore you can utilize this information and go out and do what needs to be done to kind of protect yourself and your family.
And no, we don't advocate violence in any way, shape, or form, but we do understand that folks are going to exercise their rights. And so we really are hoping that people will come together, organize with the proper outcomes, right? Get with your representatives, draw up a bill, try and change some of these laws, get with your attorney generals and see if they can bring some suits to try and get some injunctions on this immigration law. But I think right now there are a lot of our citizens or people who are candidate to be citizens in question and very fearful right now of whether or not they're going to be accosted. And so we don't want to, like I said, just be in a situation where we're snatching people off the streets. I do realize that we do have some bad actors that are not necessarily citizens, but that doesn't mean that we accost everybody across the board, right? We deal with them on a case-by-case basis. If law enforcement has negative contact with them and we can get them going, fine. If we get word that they're bad actors and we know that we need to get our hands on them, different story. But when you're rolling up to the high schools and grabbing principals and teachers and you're grabbing nurses and you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think you want to grab the positive contributors as much as you want to give them some positive alternatives to get things the way they need to be. The overall goal, at least the way I thought it was, the overall goal was to gain compliance, right?
Absolutely.
And so we want people to be properly documented, and if they're contributing positively to the American culture, then that's what we want to have happen.
Absolutely. Well, if I may kind of switch gears here for just a second, is I'm extremely concerned and overwhelmed as I attended a couple different meetings this week pertaining to the fraud, that's being, done, if you will, right here in our own backyard. And over the last 4 or 5 years or so now, there's been several, situations or scenarios where individuals, holding some pretty significant positions within our society, within our communities, are getting caught up in fraud. And we know that COVID, was a huge catalyst, for that there. But this last situation, really kind of, it really kind of stung me. We seem to have lost signal, but that's all right. The last one really kind of stung me, man, when I saw the legendary Khalid El-Amin's son, the relative of Mr. Bobby Joe Champion, to have got caught up in fraud of $6 million, and he just kind of pled guilty, to that. Now he's serving 6 years in federal prison for this fraud that he was involved in.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think it's a little overwhelming as to how far some of this fraud rises.
Absolutely.
Right. I think the biggest thing that people need to understand that in order for fraud to be successful, there has to be co-conspirators. Right. And that means that someone in a position of authority had knowledge of the impropriety and allowed it.
Absolutely.
Right, or gained from its existence. And so when we have whistleblowers out there and people are going, oh my God, they did this, I step back and I go, wow, I see the bad actor that we caught, but who really gained from allowing this? Right, especially when you get stuff like Medicaid, Medicare, and you got DHS involved, right?
Right.
And so when you're supposed to be the ones vetting these folks, right? So before they can even get it up and going, you're supposed to do your part to ensure that they're in compliance. right? There's no doubt that when you approve them, you know they're in compliance. And if they're not in compliance, then that means you just gave them the money and benefited somewhere down the road in some fashion, right? That's my thought, because when you look at millions and millions of dollars, right? If you talk to people who receive welfare, they'll tell you, dude, I got to go through A, B, and C just to get to it.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Here, these folks are just saying, yeah, we got a program, and we're going to throw millions of dollars of it. And then once somebody finally says, you know what, I'm going to call Carrie Levin, right? And they do an investigation, and they go ask the questions to DHS, like, hey, what happened? Then DHS goes, oh, yeah, we're going to take a look at that. But why didn't you already know? You see what I'm saying? We can hold the actors accountable, but it started up here.
Absolutely.
Right? And so many people signed off on that. Hundreds and millions of dollars. And you telling me that, yeah, we're going to get them. You're going to get them. You gave it to them.
Right. Well, you know, like I said, man, you know, the bottom line is that these actors that have been involved, you know, with these various different fraud cases, you know, over the last several years, has just put a target, if you will, you know, on the target of Hennepin County. It has brought a lot of trauma, you know, to the city of Minneapolis and Hennepin County, and it's just kind of makes things look very unfortunate for a lot of nationalities, because they're focusing on certain nationalities when we talk about the Somali community and the daycare thing that they were supposed to be involved in. At one point, I think it was the mayor's aide, you know, who was involved in something at one point, and he was Somali descent, I believe.
Well, these are poverty-stricken communities that definitely need the services.
Absolutely.
Even like the housing fund that no longer exists now, because of the bad actors. The folks who actually needed the help don't have it now. So you're punishing them by removing the funds altogether, right? Because in your mind, that's the easiest way to do, is to just shut off the funds. But what about the people who was expecting those homes to come to life?
Absolutely.
So I think, like I said, when you look at the fact that you know, there's supposed to be a procedure to get this stuff up and running and get it in play. I mean, we have to do a better job at the administrative level to make sure that these guys are doing what they're supposed to do to hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely.
Because that's what the problem of it is. And then, you know, like I said, we're in such denial. I mean, we have a president, unfortunately, Donald, is in office for fraud, right? And it is no longer an alleged, because he was convicted. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm shocked that we're even prosecuting fraud anymore, given the fact that the leader of our free world is allowed to do so and be the president, right? So I mean, it's a history. The level of integrity that we used to be at, the expectation of you know, integrity, it's not there, and it seems as if we're blowing the whistle when, like, I lose out. You know what I mean? Like, if I lost out, okay, now I'm telling, right? But when I was benefiting, I knew it was happening, but I was okay with it. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, you really kind of have to think, and I don't know a lot about this piece here, but you know, the fraud that's going on within the NBA, you know, right now. I mean, there's been some big names, you know, that has kind of come about, that's been investigated or under investigation, that has, you know, perhaps maybe even, you know, had to go down and get a mug shot and fingerprints and things of that nature.
Well, I think what we can agree on is that there's widespread corruption that has always existed that now is being exposed. Right. There is a lot of corruption within our system, and we're not vetting that.
So why does it seem, you know, that within like the last like 5, 6, maybe 7 years, that it's just been a great abundance of fraud occurring? I mean, because it was a couple years ago when we had the mayor that was over in a was it Dalton? I think it was like the city of Dalton, and she was also involved in another city doing another position in another city. But again, this type of stuff is just kind of going on kind of throughout the country. And when you kind of talk about integrity, and these are individuals, like you said, that that have money. They're in good positions wherever they're at, and it's just like you will be able to do more, gain more if money, if it's the financial piece that you're going after, you're going to make a lot more money by doing the right thing than you will.
The thing of it is, this has been going on since the dawn of America.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
The great American experiment, which is why our forefathers built the checks and balance system because they saw the possibility for groups to be able to manipulate and maneuver, right? There's just so many different directions, so much money changing hands, so it's not hard. But what it requires is co-conspirators. And so when you have folks in positions of authority that do benefit from it being that way and it's unchecked power, you will have fraud. And in every one of these levels of government that we've seen it in, it started because this group over here had figured out that there's a loophole here that they could funnel money through, and they found a way to stay in power and keep it rolling, and people got so used to it being that way, then they thought, oh, well, that's the way things are done, right? And not until somebody said, wait a minute, dude, this is just morally wrong.
Right.
We need to not do that. And then, of course, that person was in jeopardy of being smeared, having their name smeared and everything to try to discredit them. But we know to this day that the truth is buried so deep, right? And anybody that's campaigning on the truth or pushing the honesty of what's really happening, they face so many uphill challenges. And you'll see it even in campaigns, that those guys that are out here trying to change things for the better, that are bringing out things that are positive, they're not being financially or physically supported by the communities. Right? Because the community's gotten so used to this guy who's got all the money, right? He's hoarding all the money. He can put his message out there and everybody go, yeah, I know that name. I know that name. Yeah, you know that name, but do you really know what that name is doing? Right?
Absolutely. Well, I do know that we're kind of coming down to the end of another fabulous show. I know that we kind of had a little bit of technical difficulties with our Facebook Live, but that's okay. But when that happens, we still kind of
we'll
keep it rolling.
A different day.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back a different day and still kind of empower you and encourage you and come on down and be a part of the show. But before we kind of get out of here, there's. I want to say, thank you to the Timberwolves, for taking some kids shopping. We're right around the corner from the holidays. Thanksgiving is next week. And so come this Sunday, the Lord has placed it upon my heart to dig in my pockets, bro. He said, dig in your pockets. I said, what? Exactly. But we will be over on Chicago and Franklin between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Handing out socks, hats, gloves, things of that nature. And so this is all, from the love of my heart and, God placing this upon me. But I'm really looking forward, to this. This is only going to be the first one. I plan on doing this for the next 4 months.
Okay.
And kind of going from there. We have so much trauma and so many other negative things that are happening, in our communities, in our cities. And so this is kind of my way of just spreading love.
Okay.
Showing people it's that we care, and kind of going from there. But I do know that there's a lot of other, individuals and entities out there, doing powerful things, Banks Youth, but let me even say this here. I do know that we want to send prayers out to Brother KG. He will be having surgery, here, I believe, within the next 3 or 4 days or something like that there. So we hope and praying that you're going to kind of pull through.
And they had a death in the family a week before that.
Yeah, he had a death in the family a week before that. And then I lost a good friend of mine here recently, and this is how this is kind of coming full circle. He had a surgery on his neck. It sounded like it was something very simple and basic, something that's, doctors or whatever kind of do on a regular basis. Unfortunately, he did not kind of make it. And so we're just losing people, right? So, get to know your neighbors, check on your neighbors, check on your loved ones, your friends. I can't say it enough of how valued a hello or how you doing, how can I help, even if it's just taking the time to listen to someone vent. It's extremely important that we do this together, because again, a good portion of us with, things that are as high as they are, we a paycheck or two ourselves, from someone come knocking on our door telling you got to get out, and as we kind of make jokes about that type of stuff, but what I'm saying is life be lifing, and things are real. Right. And we need to acknowledge that and understand that just because, you may have a house or you may have a car or, a few dollars in your pocket doesn't make you any better or any greater than those who don't. And that's even more the reason why you need to be able to kind of get out and share and spread, some of that love. So many individuals are kind of judging others and pushing, the negativity. Replace that with joy. Replace it with love. And we'll be better off as a society, as a country. Whatever's going to happen, within our presidency, whatever's going to happen when change kind of comes about and you get a new mayor or you get new city council or whatever the case may be, it happens. I know that we don't necessarily like change and we don't necessarily like to see some of the things that we're seeing kind of across the country, but it's happening. But you have to educate and empower and enhance yourself.
You do. You have to embrace the change. Everybody's going to do it a different way. Everybody thinks their way is better. And so you got to be willing to be a little open-minded. It was nice to see our family members from across the aisle, both Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, come together and get the government back open.
Absolutely.
Kudos to them for finally realizing, look, we serve the people and not ourselves, and let's do what's best for the greater good. Now, we don't know exactly all the details, but the important part is that we're able to continue to take care of our citizens like
and whatever that outcome is, whether we agree or disagree, like it or not, because we always can't be happy, right? We always can't approve. We still have to kind of keep moving.
Right.
We still have to kind of keep making sure that we do what we can do, to, again, help, take care of yourself, take care of your families, take care of even one or two of those that, you just don't know.
And remember, we're still a part of the great American experiment. We never said we finished, right? This is still. We're still figuring it out. It's still a process. We're still in the test stage. Believe it or not, years later, we're still in the test stage. So we're not sure if this thing's even going to work for us, right?
Right.
But hopefully, we're learning along the way that we should be doing things better to enhance the life of everyone that's a part of America and those who want to come here in pursuit of a better life for themselves and family members. And so we want to make sure that we're doing what we do to make folks safe and happy here in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, man, we're down to the end of another fabulous show. CCX Create has kind of come into the room, and they kind of given us that look like, man, you got about 10 seconds. We're going to turn out the lights. Again, the holidays is coming. Eat, be merry, be happy, be safe. Feed a stranger. Feed a stranger. We want to thank CCX Create, as we do each and every week, for allowing us to be here to bring you information to help educate, empower, and enhance you, the community. Please feel free to kind of come on down and be part of Let's Talk About It, or contact CCX Create themselves, and you can have your own show. We cannot do this without you. We cannot do this for free. So if there's anything in that wallet, 50 cents, $1, $1.50, $2 maybe, and push that donate button, I'm sure that they will greatly appreciate it. Brother Joe, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to you so we can kind of hit him with that famous backpack and get on up out of here.
All right, real quick, it's been great. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you jumping on. We'll see you again next week. It's been a really, really, really great chance to get out here and talk to you guys about some concerns in your community. We look forward to seeing you again next week, same bad time, right? With that being said, we start, middle, and end the show with the backpack.
That famous backpack.
And that backpack consists of making sure you got your driver's license and insurance before you get in that vehicle. Remember to place them above the visor. That way, if stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands so they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel, and as always making it home to your loved ones. Same thing walking down the street. Make sure you got your driver's license or ID where it's easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands so they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel, and as always, make it on home to your loved ones. Another great show today. We thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you again next week. My name's Joe Banks.
And I'm Anthijuan Beeks.
And we just talked about it.
Peace.